So you just watch Kendrick Lamar's alright, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be understood for quite a while. I really don't. Let me introduce myself. I'm InquisitorQ.
And I'm LaCroix, the BlackAnglo.
BlackAnglo. I don't know how well that's going to play, but anyway. Shit falling off. I was like, yo, I don't think people want to get Kendrick. So I wrote this. Kendrick's Alright video brings Italian, French, and German storytelling techniques to an audience that holds Spike Lee to be one of the greatest auteurs. Auteurs is like the French way of saying directors, because the way we treat LeBron, it's the way they treat their directors. Like, if you're a director in France, you are that. I said auteurs. You are that. The muted grayscale, black or white, of this film screams neo-Italian realism and sings of Federico Fellini Carnival and his critique of contemporary social issues while holding a Godard Nouveau Vague, or French New Wave, like attitude towards depicting the damaging ills of societal issues, poverty, and police brutality. This attitude points out the absurdity of those issues as it doesn't aim to remain rooted in reality, like when he's walking across and shit. Like, we all know that you can't have Timbs and just walk around. You can see the wire work he's on a lamppost. But this is why it's important, though. His attitude points out the absurdity of those issues as it doesn't aim to remain rooted in reality, which speaks to Lamar taking on a concern of Mephistopheles. That's the German part. Mephistopheles is goes along with the Faustian story. He's really not the devil, but he's depicted in the devil. In other cultures, he's more like a damned man. As he moves throughout the piece, giving money to an environment from which he came, Compton, instead of an environment such wealth has constricted him to. Like, Kendrick Lamar really has this whole guilty thing about having money, like, especially when institutionalized. Like, he really has this thing about money makes him odd and makes it weird for him, but he really doesn't want to leave the hood, quote unquote hood. So this speaks to. So he begins to speak to his native country, America, with a Vonnegut wit and satirical tongue, as he is shot down from the lamppost in the end with a cop like that. He's shot down from the lamppost like Harrison from the ceiling. Now, that's a short story by Kurt Vonnegut. Name is Harrison Bergeron. Definitely look up Harrison Bergeron. You'll get that shot.
How you spell Bergeron?
Bergeron. I do not know, so I just put Harrison. But I know it begins the first three letters are B-E-R, I believe. Harrison Bergeron until title. That's really on title too, so in Apple Music.
We will.
We got to talk about title on Apple Music. Then you have the whole Flying Lotus, who is also, I believe, is connected to the Coltrane family. So it's really the West Coast making a statement, along with Kendrick Lamar making a statement about Compton. Because if you just look at Kendrick Lamar, then you're only looking at one part of what Compton or what the West Coast is saying. They're saying something way bigger than just that one thing.
But back to him having an affliction of, or survivor's guilt is what they call it, is what they coined it as. Yeah. You gotta understand, even in going to school and coming back, you get survivor's guilt somewhat because you grew up with these people. But you were able to matriculate out of it, though. You were able to have the same obstacles for the most part and still be able to matriculate from a higher place. Now, what happens is you go, you learn, and you grow. But for the most part, when the people you come back to, they don't understand you because you aren't Kendrick Lamar. You aren't the person that you once were, for instance. But
came back, that is, to DC.
To DC, when I came back, I wasn't that guy who everybody knew me as when I left. But I still had the presence of that guy within me that everybody knew when I left. It's just that I developed it to a point where I can go and sit and talk and mingle and be able to matriculate and, what's the word I'm looking for?
Finesse?
Not even finesse, but transcend and be applicable and versatile to be able to fit in different genres or different arenas.
So
it's like
basically code switch.
Yeah, super code.
You got more code. You got more switches than everybody. Most people, like, throughout the series, you will see I mostly speak job interview. Meaning, it's funny he's Anglo. He's the Anglo in attitude. I am literally the Anglo when it comes to writing. I write like Carlton if he was actually white. That's how I write.
But
I see what you're saying, because it's more like they were used to you as Mac. They were used to you as a first iPhone. You was the first iPhone.
Macintosh.
Yeah, you were Macintosh, you were Apple. Like, for those who didn't have the first iPhone, I swear I'm coming off as a brand.
I was the second guy.
I swear I'm coming off as a brand. I don't care. But those who had the first iPhone, you knew that if you got a text message and it was an SMS, you actually had to go to the internet to look at it at I had AT&T, so AT&T's website.
I mean, pause before you continue. AT&T was the only people who had it when they were silverbacks.
Oh, I forgot.
They had an exclusive contract, mind you.
Oh, call them silverbacks. I like that, like gorillas.
Yeah, because you know they had the back silver.
I still have mine.
And the black bottom. I got the box of mine. I don't got
it. I actually still have mine. Like, this is the only one I want for real. That's why I don't give a shit about. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, the cultural significance. So they knew you as a first iPhone.
Mm-hmm. And
you came back, although that first iPhone had a great impact, had great cultural significance. Now you're like, nigga, I'm an iPhone 6. I'm a 6. Actually, I'm a 6 Plus, because not only am I useful as a phone, but I'm actually a mini tablet of a tablet.
I'm versatile.
I'm super versatile. I see what you're saying. But I don't necessarily know I ever had that problem, because I've been, as you can tell, my personality is abrasive. I've been abrasive for a long time.
It's not so much about being abrasive. It's about more so of the arena that you're already in before you start to matriculate. Because here's the difference. The people that I hung around, the type of people that I hung around, even though we come from the same environment, the people that I hung around are totally different and in a different mindset and psyche than the people that you've hung around. Not as a totality, but for the most part. Your people can and have matriculated as well. The people that I've hung around, not to say they're bad people, just...
everybody can be horrible.
Everybody can be horrible. But just the psyche of actually going through the motion of what it is to, quote-unquote, assimilate.
I see what you're saying. Like, it's the difference between... Because I was thinking about what would I actually call myself. I was thinking about what would I actually call myself, and I was like, the colonized drunk. And I was like, nah, I don't want to use drunk because of my other ventures and the other stuff I do. But I was like, the colonized work because it speaks to how I feel as a quote-unquote colonized intellectual. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, BlackAnglo.
Yeah. French from the wretched of the earth. But you're talking about how the native and the colonized always have this ongoing conversation, but the colonized intellectual also has this ongoing conversation with a colonizer. So it's like it's that limbo, and I feel like Kendrick Lamar now is in that limbo. But the question is there an infrastructure that would support someone who came up, or someone who, let's say, was raised in, because it's really, I hate when people like, oh, you're not black. It's like, what the fuck is black? Like, there's blackness and there's degrees of black.
But it's funny that you say,
because he came from an impoverished neighborhood. So a suburban person may not even understand the hell he's talking about.
But it's funny that you say the thing about being in limbo. Now, being in limbo, if you take that same concept of limbo, you're talking about the idea of being neutral. Now, when you think about being neutral and everything that goes into that concept, he has reached a point where he is neither black or white in his psyche because, one, he's matriculated past what black, quote-unquote, is in the American diaspora, if you want to say. But at the same time, he hasn't... But at the same time, he can never matriculate to be white. So what happens is you get caught when you're moving up and moving up and moving up and moving up, because money isn't going to make you white.
True. Kanye says it. You still a nigga in the coop.
Exactly. So with that being said, what happens is now you're shunned by your people because your people can't understand you, or the same people who came from where you were can't comprehend or can't relate to where you are now.
Another time.
So,
but you have the rise of the black conservative in the 1980s, because people always talk about the 80s and crack, but people don't talk about 80s as in the rise of the black conservative, where you have a growing population of black people, I would say, Africans and American diaspora. No, Africans and America of the diaspora, because I don't necessarily ascribe to black. So, what you have in the 1980s is that at one point in time you had that black person or that African American who actually did matriculate and so forth, and actually did have to, who went and got degrees. The Sidney Poitiers, I would say. Go look at the Sidney Poitier's filmography. You'll see what I'm talking about. Go look at this. When you look at Sidney Poitier, guess who comes to dinner and stuff like that. No Way Out and stuff like that. Those black individuals were forced to stay within the black community because they literally couldn't move to a white community without fear of reprisal or death. Because the whole thing about the black skin was enough to make you black. That 1% was real. Like, no, you got to stay there. But what happened in the 1980s is that you get more. Anybody who's an economist, please correct me or point me in the right direction of what to study. But what I have seen from anecdotal, from my observations and research, is that when you get into the 80s, you get into the separation of, quote unquote, the black economic structure. So you have the high, quote unquote, the talented 10th no longer has to live with the other 90%. So the talented 10th is no longer promoting. So now that the talented 10th has been moved, and they're in a different arena, they do begin to assimilate. And the mindset and approaches to resolving problems. Because anybody who's grown up in the hood or the projects or an impoverished place knows that your respect is everything. Because if you get disrespected, then you're no longer a person. You are a resource.
Yeah.
You get disrespected, you're a resource. So you're willing to fight to defend that resource, your respect. Because your respect is literally a commodity to the death of you. But when you move out into the suburbs and so forth, and someone may say you're generalizing, I'm using the way economists have and the media has set up socioeconomic structures. Because the suburbs usually denote someone who has a disposable income. Urban or inner city usually speaks to someone that's dependent on a welfare state, which is a complete total misnomer. But that's how I'm using the terms. But when you get to the suburbs, a person doesn't necessarily have that same pressure, that same balance that you get in the inner city, in an impoverished inner city area. So you don't necessarily, a reputation can be won or lost. You don't have to defend it to the end of you. Because even if you're not, and I'm not talking about being a drug dealer on that, because you get guilt by association. I know you was taught guilt by association.
Of course.
So it's like,
I'm not somebody.
Exactly.
You're in trouble too.
Exactly. And the trouble you get into as a POC, person of color, inner city youth, is that you don't get suspended. You don't get no second chances. The moment you're marked as this, oh, you're a troublemaker, or you're rebellious, or you're this and you're that, you're disruptive to respectability politics, as well as the politics of making people follow and obey instructions. Like, you can't be civil disobedience. If you think I'm just making it up, look up David Hume, look up Noam Chomsky. And what I mean by civil disobedience, about how school is really set up to teach people, as you've always told me, how grades are a reflection of how obedient you are. And now so you're basically being taught how to listen to this. Yeah.
And you get graded on it.
And you get graded on it.
That you say that. I used to say that, in 6th grade, 5th grade? But people don't understand when you're born into a social contract. Social contract. Not a contract of business or anything like that, but social. Most people don't like to emphasize words on their own, but you gotta understand that when the idea of school isn't to really learn, it's to be socialized. That's why
I agree with that.
That's why it's more about doing what you're told and not going against the grain, because it's literally grooming you to be a member of the society that you live in.
See, I never thought about it that way.
It goes to say, when you do those things, and this is why they build jails in relationship to how people do in school. If a child is failing, say 3rd grade, it's not that he's stupid. What it is you aren't being obedient enough. So when you aren't being obedient enough, it goes back simply to you actually being in more trouble, because you are going to eventually disobey the law. Not saying that they're wrong, but what it is it's a mode of thinking where, okay, if he can't obey a class, I can make a jail for him because I know he's still going to go against the grain once he get out.
But I agree with that line of logic, is that, or eventually he's going to disobey the law. And the problem I have, again, why I keep writing this rap paper again and again and again, is that the people are not listening. Like, you expect them to speak job interview. You really do. People expect you to speak job interview, but when you come up in certain areas, you don't get that job interview spoken to you. You don't get that courtesy. You don't get that level of professionalism. People treat you as if you're disposable. They treat you as you're disposable, so they talk to you in a certain kind of way. So how do you expect a third grader to have the language, therefore the communication skills, therefore the thinking, to articulate that I'm not being disobedient, I'm acting out because I need you to help me. I have these other problems outside of, and go past the family structure, go past this whole family broken home thing, because that's another historical point.
Listen to what you just said. You said everything about how why would a child have the acumen to communicate these things to actually progress? The reason that it doesn't matter is because it's not about actually having those things. It's simply about you obeying the order that has been given to you, whether it makes sense or it does not make sense.
But my thing is, and this is why I'm continuing to push the point, is because when those children do have that ability, they put you in a different track. They're like, oh, you're smart. I'm like, no. So you don't think like the rest of them. No, I do. I think just like everyone else. I'm from this area. When I walk outside of this door, before I get home, I have a whole set of obstacles to go through. But what I'm saying is that they don't listen to the child. They're like, yo, F this, and not this, and this, that, and this. Don't nobody care to this, that, and the third. And that's getting loud and it's animated. They see it as anger, aggression. When we know he or she is frustrated. Like, if he or she was angry, like, they just pop off. But when someone's yelling and screaming and tossing and turning and they fighting, they're frustrated. And what the problem I have is that people they're like, rap is poetry. Rap is not poetry. But you need to analyze rap and take rap as seriously as we take poetry. I'm saying, when I say we, I mean the academy, those who consider themselves scholars and researchers. Because if you look at rap, you'll see that black men, I'll say black men because I mostly listen to black artists, have had this problem in contemplating suicide since the 80s.
It's all over there. It's in the titles of people's albums. Like, the most famous, well, I wouldn't say the most, but one of the more prominent, Biggie's Ready to Die. Then you have a lot of albums that actually go into I'm just done.
I'm done.
Suicidal thoughts.
I'm done.
Songs that
lashing out like fucking and but people, sorry for cutting you off, but people don't necessarily pay attention to it. Like, oh, they just aim it, they're sending for aggression. It sounds nice. It's like, no. The problem is that at one point in time, that shit starts to sell, and people want to hear more of that story, and then the story becomes away from reality. But the thing I like about Kendrick Lamar, and the thing I like about J. Cole and so forth, is that they're going back to like, no, this is real. When that dude is sitting there talking about he don't care about nobody, why do you think he don't value nobody? Because he don't value him damn self. How can I sit here and say, I care for my brother, and this is my brother, if no one treats me or ever had treated me like I had value? See, now I'm starting to see, well, I was treated like I had value because I was that little kid that could articulate
and what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now you can be used as a resource.
I hate that shit. I really do. I hate
But
power.
You gotta understand, when I study politics, or as I'm studying politics, but back in my heyday, we don't learn things from a technical aspect. We learn things from a philosophical aspect and how they apply to human beings and how to create the parallels between the actual technicalities and and how it affects human beings. Now, what happens is you have this nuance in every situation. But everything becomes a resource when you're dealing with politics. Human beings, things, etc., etc. For instance, our phones are a resource, but that resource is so tied into you that you catch yourself not letting it die because it has become such a part of you that it is you. And you're dependent.
Yeah, I got
you're dependent on it. But I'm not going to go into it super deep right now, but it goes into the energy and how energies and how the things you can't see and how the radiation and all that is actually going and seeping and attaching itself to you.
I got you.
So in politics and people who just love power, everything is about that. It's always about that. That's why I always urge people to think like the savage, think like the Anglo, because otherwise
we're going to have to explain that one day. Think like the Anglo.
You're always going to lose. You're always going to be under the foot because you're civilized.
I think we should end it there because now we're getting into the social theories. I think we really got to show people what it is we're really going to bring them. We're going to talk about the social theories. We're going to talk about the politics. We're going to talk about a whole lot of other shit. As you can see, this was clearly set up to show you what it is I collect. I collect a lot of shit. So, I really think we should end it here for timing's sake. And then we can talk about other theories and things like that.